The Las Vegas Raiders just wrapped their 2026 NFL Draft, and I've been sitting with that. I want to give you my honest, unfiltered evaluation, no manufacturing excitement where the evidence doesn't support it. Just what I actually think when I look at this class, carefully and honestly. Let's start at the top, because the top is where everything else either gets validated or undermined. Fernando Mendoza explaining it would actually work against the simplicity of a reclamation project wearing the costume of a solution. Build around him for the next decade quarterback. Mendoza is that player. Heisman Trophy winner, national champion, mechanically clean in ways that don't require extensive professional reconstruction. He layers throws downfield with touch and timing, not launching the ball into space and hoping receivers find it, but calibrating arc and placement based on where coverage is positioned relative to the route. His decision-making is quick and disciplined. He operates within structure rather than forcing plays into shapes they were never designed to take. And beyond the technical football profile, there's the composure, the leadership presence, the way he enters a competitive environment and raises everyone's standard. That's an organizational identity trait, not just a football trait. The A+ was never going to be anything else. And the Trident-Stokes trade that allowed Las Vegas to move back in the first round and still land their quarterback only makes this selection look better in retrospect. The front office read the board correctly, extracted additional value in the process, and still walked away with the player that mattered most. That's genuinely excellent draft management, and it deserves to be acknowledged as such. Round 2, Trident-Stokes, safety. Grade, B+. I want to be transparent with you. My initial reaction when this pick came in carried some hesitation. The position felt less immediately urgent than some alternatives I could see on the board, and the name wasn't among the loudest ones circulating in pre-draft conversation. But the more carefully I examined this player against the defensive philosophy Rob Leonard is actively constructing in Las Vegas, the more clearly this selection made football sense. Stokes is genuinely versatile in a way that specifically rewards what Leonard is building. He can operate as a free safety, he's excellent in the nickel, and he can shift outside when coverage assignments demand it. Multiple evaluators had him as a potential late first-round talent before the draft. I've seen legitimate mock drafts projecting him at the back end of round 1, which means acquiring him in round 2 represents real surplus value by any honest calculation. The key to fully understanding this selection is understanding the defensive identity Leonard is constructing. Zone coverage is the foundation of everything he's putting together, and Stokes is precisely the center field presence that makes zone defenses function at their highest level. A safety who processes the field quickly, reads route combinations efficiently, and consistently finds himself in proximity to the football when it matters. There's a personnel connection within this class that becomes clearer when we get to the round 5 pick, and once you see the complete secondary vision, the logic of investing in Stokes this early makes even more sense. B+ and genuinely trending upward as the full picture develops. Round 3, pick 67. Crone Crawford, edge rusher, grade C+. I want to be transparent here too. My initial instinct on this selection was lower, and the Tyree Wilson trade context adjusted my thinking in a meaningful way. Once I understood the full defensive line philosophy rather than evaluating Crawford as an isolated pick, he made considerably more sense as a piece within a larger construction. He can operate in a 3-4 alignment. He can function in a 4-3. That positional flexibility gives Leonard genuine situational options based on down, distance, and opponent, rather than deploying a player who only operates effectively in one schematic environment. He came to football relatively late, didn't begin playing seriously until his senior year of high school, which means his developmental ceiling is genuinely open in ways that statistical analysis cannot fully capture. The evaluators I trust most have drawn comparisons to Kendrick Falk, and he competed impressively at the Senior Bowl against legitimate opposition. Leonard has a documented track record of developing defensive line talent when the right raw material is available. Crawford has the raw material. C+ is my honest evaluation. Above average selection with real developmental upside that still requires the development to materialize. Round 3, pick 91. Trey Zweather, offensive lineman, grade B. This emerged from a trade-back scenario. The Raiders moved back and collected an additional third-round pick, then deployed it here. Zweather may project as a backup rather than an immediate starter at the NFL level, but the value he provides to this specific roster at this specific moment is genuinely important. 4-year starter, high football IQ, technically sound in the ways that 4 years of sustained starting experience tends to produce. His PFF pass blocking grade is 96.5. one of the highest marks ever recorded at that position in college football. He can play center, guard, or tackle, depending on what the situation demands, which is the kind of versatility that makes a backup offensive lineman genuinely functional, rather than a simple roster placeholder. When Raiders scouts traveled to the Miami and Texas A&M game specifically to watch Zuether compete against Ruben Bain, a player who went in the first round, and came away genuinely impressed with what they saw, that tells you something specific and real about the organization's evaluation of his competitive level. Offensive line instability cost this offense significantly last season. Zuether is protection against that happening again, with Fernando Mendoza behind center. You hope you never need the insurance. You're deeply grateful for it when you do. Now we get to the most complicated selection in this entire class, and I want to give it the careful treatment it genuinely deserves. Jamin McCoy, cornerback day 3. The talent ceiling on McCoy is not merely good, it is legitimately elite. If you watched him play through 2024 before the injury, he was making a serious argument to be the best cornerback in college football. Not top 10, the best. His ball-hawking instincts, his footwork and man coverage, his ability to locate and attack the football at its highest point. In a healthy draft, he is a top 10 pick with no real debate required. The Raiders acquired him on day 3. That gap between his evaluated talent level and where he actually landed is almost entirely explained by knee surgery he needs, and I have to be direct about what that reality means. If the procedure doesn't resolve the way everyone hopes, there is a genuine scenario where McCoy doesn't play professional football again. That risk is on the table. It's why he fell this far, but McCoy himself has said he'll follow whatever the Raiders' medical staff recommends. Surgery timing, rehab protocol, full cooperation, and if he comes through healthy and gets on the field this season, I believe he becomes the #1 cornerback on this roster immediately. On a team that has been searching for genuine secondary help with real urgency, a healthy Jamin McCoy is a transformational addition. Both the upside and the uncertainty are extreme, and how this resolves will have significant influence on whether this draft class is remembered as exceptional or complicated. Round 4. Mike Washington Jr., running back out of Arkansas. Grade A. I genuinely could not believe this player was still available when Las Vegas made this selection. If you want lightning to complement Ashton Jeanty's thunder, Washington is precisely that player. 4.3 in the 40, breakaway straight line speed with enough size to handle between the tackles work when the situation demands it. The specific problem that a Washington Jeanty backfield creates for opposing defensive coordinators is that you cannot solve both of them with the same schematic approach. Loading the box to shut down Jeanty creates the open space Washington needs to take one to the end zone. Providing safety help to account for Washington opens up exactly what Jeanty destroys. Both backs threaten the defense in fundamentally different ways, and no single adjustment handles both threats simultaneously. There are real developmental areas. Pass protection needs genuine work, ball security has been a documented concern, but the physical tools are special. The zone gap instincts are natural, and the offensive system he operated in at Arkansas runs on concepts similar to what Kubiak deploys here. The transition should feel intuitive rather than disorienting. This pick was tremendous day 3 value and stands as one of the cleanest individual selections in the entire class. Round 5, pick 150. Dalton Johnson, safety and cornerback out of Arizona. Grade B. Here is the detail that immediately elevated this pick in my evaluation the moment I saw it. Dalton Johnson and Triton Stokes are best friends. They played together at Arizona. Their communication patterns are already established at a level that cannot be manufactured through training camp repetitions. They've lined up alongside each other long enough to have genuine intuitive understanding of how the other operates in coverage and in run support. In Rob Leonard's zone scheme, where the back end of the defense constantly has to communicate coverage responsibilities, pass-off assignments, and rotation adjustments in real time, under pressure, in loud stadiums, in compressed decision windows, that kind of pre-existing chemistry has concrete functional value that simply cannot be created artificially. Johnson isn't the most explosive athlete in this class, and the Raiders paid something of a premium moving up to acquire him at 150. But watch his tape, and the thing that consistently stands out is football intelligence. He understands his zone responsibilities at a level that routinely surprises offenses expecting to exploit him. He's played box safety, nickel, and outside corner, giving Leonard genuine deployment flexibility. The secondary vision is clarifying, Stokes reading the field from depth as the center field anchor, Johnson sliding into the nickel or the box depending on matchup and game situation. Zone coverage with two players who already know how to talk to each other because they already do. That is a secondary being built with genuine organizational thought rather than assembled under urgency. Round 5, pick 175, Zeke Massey's, cornerback out of Cal. Grade B. The biographical arc here is genuinely compelling, and I find myself consistently more interested in players whose careers have taken this specific shape. 3 years at FIU, where evaluators questioned his ability to compete at a higher level. He performed and proved them wrong. Transfer to Cal, where evaluators questioned him again given the jump in competition level. He performed and proved them wrong again. That pattern, consistently underestimated, consistently responding with performance rather than complaint, tells you something real about competitive character that doesn't appear in any statistical database. He runs a 4.4640, which is legitimate starting corner speed at the professional level, 7 pass breakups, and 4 interceptions across his college career. Not without limitations. He can be grabby in coverage in ways that will draw flags professionally, and he isn't dominant against the deep ball. But for 5th-round value, acquiring a corner who can contribute in Leonard's zone scheme and compete for a nickel rotation role is a solid outcome. The chip on his shoulder has been validated by performance at multiple levels of competition. That matters when projecting how a player adjusts to professional adversity. Round 6, pick 195. Malik Benson, wide receiver. Grade, B+. The big board I trust most had Benson ranked 105th overall. The Raiders got him at pick 195. That gap between evaluated talent and draft position is about as clean a value calculation as you find anywhere in this entire class. And the fit with Fernando Mendoza is something I want to highlight specifically because it's the most exciting individual pairing in the whole draft. Benson runs a 4.3740. He had 6 touchdowns last season, and 5 of those 6 came on plays covering more than 40 yards, 5 out of 6. Think carefully about what that number actually describes about a player's primary mode of contribution. This is a receiver who changes the trajectory of drives and games with single plays that cover the full length of the field. In a Kubiak-influenced offense built around running the football, controlling game scripts, and manufacturing efficiency through schematic structure, having a receiver who forces safeties to account for him vertically before the snap is enormously valuable independent of target volume. He keeps the box lighter. He keeps safeties from committing downhill on run plays before they develop. He creates spacing effects throughout the formation that allow everything else the offense is trying to accomplish to function more efficiently. And Mendoza can put the ball in exactly the trajectory windows a deep threat needs to find and track. That specific combination of a quarterback who layers throws with touch and a receiver who locates and adjusts to them creates something genuinely exciting on a per-play basis. Getting that combination in round 6 is exceptional value. Round 7, pick 229, Brandon Cleveland, defensive tackle out of NC State, grade B+, final pick of the entire draft, and an honest surprise in the best possible way. 6'4", 315 pounds, 4 years of starting experience with the Wolfpack, 35 tackles, and 2 sacks in his final season. He isn't going to be a featured pass rusher generating flashy production statistics. That isn't what he is, and that isn't what this selection was intended to produce. What Cleveland does is anchor. He eats space. He holds his assigned gap without getting displaced. He occupies offensive linemen so that the players around him have cleaner angles to the quarterback and the ball carrier. The line of scrimmage is decided in inches in professional football, and Cleveland doesn't concede inches. Finding a player with this physical profile, this much starting experience, and this specific functional value on the final pick of the entire draft is a legitimately good outcome. Closing a draft class with a B+ is better than most organizations manage with early 3rd-round capital. When I stand back and look at this class in its entirety, the coherence of what the Raiders assembled is the thing that stays with me. Fernando Mendoza anchoring everything as the franchise quarterback, this organization has genuinely needed for years. Tridon Stokes and Dalton Johnson constructing a secondary with pre-existing chemistry in a zone scheme designed precisely around what they provide together. Crone Crawford and Brandon Cleveland adding defensive line depth with different but complementary skill profiles. Trey Zuther providing offensive line insurance for a team that paid a real cost for its absence last season. Mike Washington Jr. creating a 2-back combination with Ginty that presents defensive coordinators with genuinely unsolvable problems. Jamin McCoy offering elite upside at a position of urgent need if the medical situation resolves the way everyone is hoping. Malik Benson giving Mendoza a deep threat whose fit with his specific arm talent is exciting in a way that goes beyond generic receiver praise. 10 picks, 5 trades, a franchise quarterback finally in place. A secondary being thoughtfully constructed around players who already know how to communicate. Depth in the trenches where last season's instability was most costly. Genuine offensive firepower, added at both running back and receiver. My overall grade for the 2026 Las Vegas Raiders draft class, A-. When the lowest individual grade in your entire class is C+, and that pick makes considerably more sense in full schematic context than it did in isolation, and you come away without a single selection that qualifies as a genuine organizational failure. That is a real win. That is the kind of draft class that gets referenced a few years from now as the one where the direction of a franchise started genuinely changing.